Low key, dog. I'm gonna talk like a wannabe Zoomer. Low key, dog.
I gotta go. You're offensive to my people because I'm an actual Zoomer, so
Welcome back to the Cool
that's
Convict Show.
crazy.
This is definitely not our second recording. We definitely did not lose the footage of our first recording of this episode.
Look.
Um, with that being said, this will be a little bit more streamlined. We're gonna kind of go over our thoughts for episode 3 and 4 of Miss Marvel. To kind of recap what I've said maybe 30 minutes ago and try to remember what I said. Last week, we didn't have a video uploaded because I was out of town, went to go celebrate Galactic Mr. E, aka Mr. E, aka E's birthday. If you want to see the pictures of that, make sure you go check out his Twitter, my Twitter, his Instagram, my Instagram. We'll have the links for you in the description. So we were out last week. We're back this week. We're going to record this similar to how the video I did for Miss Marvel, where it's episode 1 and 2 together. This one is going to be episode 3 and 4. Depending on how episode 5 goes, we may do a dedicated video for that one if a lot happens next week. If not, we'll just record it with the finale for this episode. E, since you were not here in the last recording, the last recording, not the one that we just lost, how do you feel about Miss Marvel?
So my thoughts on it, yes. All right.
Again, this is going to be more streamlined than our usual reviews because we just recorded.
I enjoy the show. I believe it's suffering from the 6-episode format. There's been a lot of pacing issues, like in episode 3, where they introduce these characters and they're like, "We'll protect you, do this thing for us," and they give her like a whole 10 minutes, and then they're like, "She's not doing it fast enough," and then like they try to murder her, like actual murder.
Yeah.
So it's suffering from some pacing issues, but I believe it's a beautiful show. The production behind it is just amazing. I think it's one of Marvel's strongest productions. I really like how they do kind of focus on the youthfulness, and you kind of see a little bit of that youthfulness kind of dissipate as the series has been going on. In the first episode, we got a lot of colorful text messages. We had a lot of like comic book stuff. Her head was in the clouds, and then episode 4, we see her texting, and it's just like this kind of plain text message,
bland,
and it's really bland, which I mean goes with the progression of the character, and I thought that's really nice. But yeah, and like I said, it's just kind of suffering from some pacing things. There's been a lot of neat stuff in the show overall, though.
Yeah. So we talked about it a lot in the recording that you're not going to see. We enjoy the show. I enjoy it. There's a lot of up and downs, and we kind of came to the conclusion when we were discussing it at the time, is that it's a pacing thing, because it's kind of going into the same issue that Moon Knight had, where Moon Knight was the first time we were introduced to a character in a TV show. With Loki, that was also only 6 episodes. With Falcon and Winter Soldier, which was only 6 episodes, we already knew those characters, so they didn't really need an origin. WandaVision was kind of its own thing because it was so good. It had 9 episodes, whatever. But the issue that Moon Knight and now Miss Marvel have of they're trying to introduce, and E made a good point last time, that episode 1 is kind of just like, here's our character, here's the world, here's everything you need to know about them. So there's really only 5 episodes of room for a story. And so when you're introducing a character for the first time, it can kind of suffer in that something that we noted for episode 3 of like, hey, here are these characters, here are the clandestines, here's the Jinn. By the end of the episode, we want to kill you already. And so, that could have been a 2-episode arc. With episode 4, they're in Pakistan and stuff, and we'll kind of see, like, it ends with her, waking up in the partition and stuff. And so I think this could have easily been an 8-episode season. Again, we don't know what's going to happen these next 2 episodes. But same thing with Moon Knight. There's some pacing issues, but there's definitely a lot to enjoy. Some things that I wrote down that I enjoyed was the soundtrack. I think is really cool. The visuals have been great. We mentioned this before, and I mentioned this in the last video for episode 1 and 2. Like, I don't really know much about Miss Marvel from the comics. I mostly know about her from the game, the Avengers game that came out. I know a lot of people had issues with her changing her powers because she's kind of basically Green Lantern now. So we'll kind of see how they continue to make that work. But another thing that we noted was, at least for me, it felt like there was something missing with this show, and we came to realize that there's not really like a main villain, which I guess
Mm.
E mentioned that she doesn't have in the comics. But it feels like since there isn't that like immediate, this one threat you're chasing or running from, then that's kind of missing, from that. So I'm
Mm.
enjoying it. There's some up and downs. Pacing is kind of an issue. So I'd be curious to see what they're gonna do. Like going to these last two episodes, I feel like this is a Moon Knight thing again, where there's a lot to figure out with only two episodes left.
There's been a lot of good Easter eggs,
Mm-hmm.
like you noted earlier, the Ten Rings. We saw in episode 3, and then we also noted that the hand that they got
The
the
Bangle.
bangle off of
Mm-hmm.
was a blue hand, which could point to Kree, which could bring Captain Marvel in, and that was one thing that we were stating earlier that you won't see, um, but
It's a ghost episode.
uh, if it's not leading up to a big fight, because we do have like a lot of these seedy characters doing like not necessarily bad things. I mean, the whole murder stuff is, it's kind of bad,
Kind of bad. Yeah, a
but
little bit.
like it's not bad to make it like a big bad.
Oh yeah.
At least in my eyes, because like I don't know, it's just kind of like they're desperate to get home. There's not really a big threat.
Yeah.
Like this is a small scale threat,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm sure to Kamala it doesn't feel
Yeah.
like a small scale threat since they're actively trying to murder her. And some people have speculated that this is going to be Star from the comic books, who goes on to join the Thunderbolts, who we will see a Thunderbolts. I can't remember if it's a movie or a TV
It might
show,
be a TV show.
but
Maybe.
so this may be the way of introducing that, but we don't really know much about this character since they're not in the comics. So in the comics, for those who are not familiar, um, I'll go back over the spiel. She has these. She's an Inhuman, so she goes to this party, much like we see in episode 2. She's tricked into drinking alcohol, and she's like, "I'm going home." And so, like, she
That
doesn't go
voice too.
home in episode 2. Well, she does, but
Yeah.
there's a whole other thing. But so in the comics, she like spits the alcohol out. She's like mad, and she's going home. And while she's walking home, she's like consumed by this Terrigen mist that's kind of flowing through town. And so she gets these inhuman powers that allow her to stretch her body. She basically actually becomes a shapeshifter because her first few times saving people in the comics, she's Captain Marvel. Like she's this white lady in the
Nice.
comics, saving
Nice.
people in Captain Marvel's like old
Her
um
look.
old uniform.
Like
And
the
so
black
that's
it's
how
the
the
black and yellow one, right?
it's the
Yeah.
black and yellow one. So that's how she actually got her name in the comic books as well. So she doesn't use the shape shifting powers like that, of course. Once she kind of gets a control over it, her main go to is to make her fist bigger and to like Hulk smash everything around
Yeah.
her. She can also like make herself smaller and make herself bigger, kind of like Ant-Man, who we get a lot of references to throughout the show. So we're really looking forward to the Ant-Man Miss Marvel kaiju fight at the end of the
Episode
series. It's
6.
gonna be this episode 6. It's going down.
Just punching each
Um,
other.
but yeah, so that's what we were saying. Like, there's no like specific big bad.
Yeah.
We do have these people trying to get home, and we also have this agency who we saw in No Way Home coming back. Also, shout out to the drone that was chasing her down in
Is
episode
that
was it episode
Mysterio's
two or
drones?
three? That was Mysterio's drone.
Ah, I knew it looked
So
familiar.
if you remember in Spider No Way Home, um, they were talking about they confiscated it, and so we
Oh,
actually get
okay.
to see the drone again. So
Makes
they're,
sense.
but
Look at this universe coming together.
it's coming together. But
Maybe those guys will figure it out at Marvel Studios one day. Maybe.
yes. So we still have them looking for her. We still have the Jins doing their whole
Yeah.
murder everyday type thing. So like, but
A couple of
we
100-year-olds
said
and this one 17-year-old that they.
this one 17-year-old who is in the comics as well. He is also an inhuman made of his body's made of light in the comics. Speculation he'll get power.
Mm,
So like we got a lot of shout outs to the comics, which I do enjoy, but there's not really a big bad. And I feel like if there's not a big bad that we're leading up to that we know that we're
gonna
going
come.
to get this like payoff for, I feel like the only way to end this and for the fans to feel satisfied is for there to be a big cameo. So I do think we're going to see at least either
Marvel.
Captain
Captain
Marvel.
Marvel's coming soon.
We're going to see Captain Marvel or Photon at the end of the series, and it's going to shed
What if we saw both? That'd be sick.
that'd actually be pretty cool. Because we don't know really what happened to Monica at the end of WandaVision.
Oh, that's
You
true.
know, and Captain Marvel is apparently has been off world for a few years, as we learned in episode one.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The Kree have been shouted out multiple times. I
Hmm.
feel like so far in the series, and so we know that Captain Marvel was working with the Kree before
Yeah.
all the stuff that happened in her movie.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's what's going to bring her back to the world, especially since Kamala is using this cosmic energy now. I feel like there's she's gonna get some kind of reading somewhere, and she's gonna be like, "What's that? The Kree are back on Earth," and she's gonna like
What's
hunt down
that?
this child.
She's
Uh,
a Girl Scout. What's that?
what's that? Um, so I feel like the payoff for this series may not be like a big bad guy. I feel like this is more of just like a coming of age type
Yeah,
story,
definitely.
and the big payoff is going to be leading up to the Marvels, which comes out next
Next year.
July.
Yeah, it's something we talked
Hmm.
about before is like this. It seems like this show is kind of like, um, it's like how in comic books where there's like a 6 issue series, mini series about a character that
Mm.
it maybe isn't. It's like very small story. Like there's not this huge threat. It's just this
Mm.
small character, street level kind of thing, that'll play into it later on. This kind of seems what this series is gonna be.
Mm.
Something we talked about before was how with Marvel Studios of them running into the issue of pacing with Moon Knight and now with Miss Marvel,
Mm.
how to avoid fatigue, they kind of have to make sure that if we are going to be introduced to characters um, that we haven't seen before, I feel like they need to be 8 episodes. As much as that kind of goes against the fatigue argument, because when you're doing 6 episodes, you're putting so much into one episode that kind of pushes your fatigue. Like you really get a chance to breathe and be like, all right, let's learn who these clandestines are before they try to kill us in like 30 minutes later. Let's learn
Exactly.
who this guy, I think his name is Waleed, the leader of the Red Daggers, before he dies in the same episode.
Mm.
Like it
Yeah.
doesn't give you a moment to live with these characters. Um, and so with that, like I wrote down a couple of quick highlights. Like you already mentioned in episode 3, at the beginning, her great grandmother takes the bangle. There's a 10 rings inscription on there. Department of Damage Control we talked about. Um, a thing that was important that I noted in here is that in the episode 3, this is the episode with her brother getting married. They talk about how the American dream isn't really real, and like it used to be kind of thing you can really strive to achieve, but now it's just like impossible. Um, I liked how wise her dad, as goofy as her dad is, he's very wise and has a lot of good
Yeah.
life experience that he passes on to his kids. Shout
Mm.
out to Brown Jovi.
Mhm.
Um, and then her brother, having $700 in his bank account, real millennial hours was a note that
Real
I had in there.
millennial hours.
Um,
Uh,
Go ahead.
yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was
No,
gonna say, and
that's
then
just great.
lastly for episode 4, kind of overall with the show, banger soundtrack, but episode 4 I feel like was hitting with the songs.
Hmm.
I thought if they did shoot it on set, I thought it looked great, but if they shot it in Pakistan, it also looks great. E made a note that we're glad they didn't do the typical like international, just put a brown filter over it. It's a different country.
Hmm.
They talked about parallel Earths in there. She doesn't have her super suit yet, but she did get the blue like vest, so she's kind of,
Hmm.
and she got the domino mask, so they're building towards that. And
Yeah.
then the last thing I had in here was the ending credits. The ending credits I love because they use actual comic book art, and we talked a little bit about how uh, DC started it this year and Marvel, where they're actually promoting the comic books in these properties, like with the QR codes in the show, or with the
Hmm.
Batman movie. They're like, hey, here's a box set for the Batman movie. So we hope they continue doing that. I
Hmm.
personally hope they continue to use comic book art in this kind of stuff because I think it works great, at least in this show, because obviously Kamala head in the clouds kind of thing. So yeah, we're enjoying the show, but we're up and down on it. We don't know how they're gonna close this out because there's so much. It feels like there's so much, but also not really anything happening these last 2 episodes. It's
Yeah.
like who
Yeah.
knows. So
And yeah, that's one of my main gripes about it is like yes, it's a beautiful show. I'm still like getting used to the powers,
Yeah,
because that's another thing we noted is that it's kind of the opposite problem that Moon Knight had,
she's Green
where
Lantern now.
yeah, but it's the opposite problem that Moon Knight had, where Moon Knight, you kind of had to know the comics going into the show
Mm.
to really appreciate what was happening. In this one, I feel like if you know the comics, it's taking something away from the show for you because you're always just like
Expecting something.
expecting something
Yeah,
different, and like especially because the powers are a big part of who the character
who
is.
she is. Yeah,
But it's just, you know, they're Green Lantern now.
yeah,
So, I
and
don't know.
and
And like, I understand the thought process behind it. You want it to be more cosmic, and it gives them a lot of wiggle room to like play with the character's backstory, like they are obviously doing.
yeah.
But and you know, we don't know. I mean, it could be one of a few different things. Damien mentioned earlier it may be due to Reed Richards coming to the MCU. Don't want too stretchy people,
I mean,
because
they're gonna
all
kill
this.
Reed Richards in 2 minutes, and
I mean,
he's.
Scarlet Witch is just going to turn everybody to spaghetti. Um,
Which, by the way, we do have a video. I should have mentioned this before. We have a video
mm,
recorded for the Doctor Strange review. It's my fault it
mm,
didn't get uploaded that week. However, with Thor coming out next week, I am gonna release that because it's gonna be
okay,
leading into it. So, Doctor Strange
yeah.
review that's coming out because we talk about some stuff in there.
We talk about spaghetti people.
But
Um,
anyways, continue. Yes.
but yeah, so there's a number of things as to why the character's powers got changed. Possible Reed Richards, possibly they just wanted the character to be more aligned to Captain Marvel in the MCU. And like I said, the way that they do have it lined up, it does leave the door open for Captain Marvel to come back because from what a lot of people say, like within the movies and TV shows, they've been off world since everything happened with Thanos.
Mm.
And so that's why I kind of do believe that these bracelets, or excuse me, these bangles are going to be Kree
Yeah,
related
Wonder Woman has the
because
bracelets. All right, don't get crazy.
I'm so sorry, wrong
Technically, they're
continuity.
gauntlets, but that's a whole other conversation.
All right. But I believe they're going to be Kree related because I believe it's going to be Miss Marvel using these cosmic powers is going to be some sort of alarm
Yeah,
to bring Captain Marvel back to Earth,
yeah.
and that's why I believe there may be some cameo that we're building up to. But I think we're just getting 6 episodes of uh, uh,
Just her hanging out.
coming to terms with their powers,
Yeah.
or it's a I don't know.
I think the more that I think
We'll
about
see
it,
what it builds.
the story, like I actually like the story, but it's just the pacing.
It's the pacing.
Yeah.
It is because like I feel like
I like the story. I like where this thing they're putting together for her. I like it.
yeah, because the first 2 episodes, like I was really into it. I
Mhm.
did not start feeling some type of way about this series until episode 3, when we got introduced to the Jins,
That
and
was
they were
fast.
like, "We're gonna help you. We're your family." And then like, we just need you to do this one thing for us. And then like 10 minutes later, she's like, "Okay, she didn't do it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's gonna kill her, but that's besides the point.
Yeah.
We're gonna kill her now." And I'm just like, well, where did we go? Like we
Yeah.
just met you. So like
I mean, our point is we want more. Like
we want more.
we're enjoying
Yeah,
it, but it's because it's so smushed together. You can't really like breathe. It's
yeah,
like everything's happening so fast. Like I said, even
exactly.
with this episode 4, we get introduced to that guy, and then he's dead.
He really is. But that's the way the cookie crumbles.
But the other thing I wanted to mention, because we mentioned this in the last recording,
Mm,
overall, like I said, we're enjoying the show. I actually am very curious how they're going to continue handling Disney Plus shows, because what do we have left? We have She-Hulk, Secret Invasion. I
mm.
guess they did announce a lot. They have like Armor Wars. They have like a bunch. But
Loki season 2.
I was gonna say, because of that, we mentioned this last time.
Mm,
Marvel announced that they are going to be back at Comic Con next month. I thought they were going to wait until their D20 thing in August or September, but they're gonna take over Comic Con. DC said they're gonna be back there, but DC's a whole mess right now. We can't even figure out who's gonna play Flash.
Yeah.
But I feel like next month is gonna be crazy. I have some ideas in mind that I want to try to do for the announcements. We'll figure it out. We're gonna do on this channel, but
Word.
I expect next month we're gonna get a very clear idea of like, here is the next. Because I think Kevin Feige came out and was like, "Oh, we're gonna show you guys like what the next saga is." Everyone's assuming it's gonna be Secret Wars. It seems what
Of
they're
course.
building to. So
That's the worst kept secret at this
yeah.
point.
So
Um,
I just hope we get something Fantastic Four, because Fantastic Four is my jam. I talk about it in more detail in the Doctor Strange review of what they did to my boy, but that's a whole conversation for another day. That's what we felt about Captain Marvel. God, it's been a long.
it's been worse.
That's episode 3 and 4 of Miss Marvel. Like I said, depending on how much happens in episode 5, we'll record a dedicated episode for that. Again, if you haven't checked out the newest video, E does talk about the DC and Marvel anthology Pride books that came out this month. For next week, I am going to record something for the Thor movie that's coming out, a book for that. And then again, we're going to have some stuff for July for Comic-Con. When Boys finishes up, I got to watch Umbrella Academy. So we have some things planned for July for you guys. We also, a little bit of a tease, speaking of Fantastic Four, I have some ideas in mind for a type of a watch along for a certain Fantastic Four movie that I have not seen yet.
Oh boy.
We'll figure it out. But thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe again. Sorry for this one being a little bit all over the place. This is our second time recording. And we'll figure out how we're going to do episode 5 and 6. We'll see you guys next week. Next week's video, assuming things go well, our Doctor Strange review video will drop. My video before Thor, leading into Thor Love and Thunder will drop. And then depending on episode 5, we'll upload that if a lot happens. We'll see.
We'll see.
Okay, bye.